you are going for more of an aggressive style mage with early minion aggression, but because you have Arcanologist, you get the blocks for free. You're essentially thinning your deck and getting that guaranteed extra turn to be able to Fireball later on, maybe Pyroblast, Archmage Antonidas.
Well, their hand is lacking some key pieces, it looks like. Namely, card draw and burn spells. Poly Montreal, the first Doomsayer, gave them some great tempo on board, and North Carolina are going to put that to the test again. 2 more minions, say which one do you want to kill in this spot. But Poly Montreal has got a lot of ways to answer what can happen in these early turns. The Ice Barrier plus Medivh's Valet can kill a minion. The second Doomsayer can emulate the same board it just did.
Yeah, well, you've got Doomsayer Frost Nova now as well, which is your guaranteed clear, assuming that your opponent doesn't have Fireball in hand. So a lot of options here for Poly Montreal, and just them having to decide what's the way that we really want to choose to clear this board. An abundance of options right now.
And honestly, that kind of has to be North Carolina's game plan, is they're going to have to make a sacrifice somewhere in order to start getting some damage done. That's, to me, where Ice Barrier makes a big difference in this matchup. It is a lot harder to get through minion damage if they're low-power minions, they get in one attack, and then they get froze to death.
Well, it's even risky to attack into a secret if you're North Carolina, because if it is Ice Barrier and you can't push 8 minion damage, well, then you've essentially healed your opponent.
Right.
So
it's a really tricky spot that I often see a lot of players make the mistake against, is in a matchup where they're more reliant on simply surviving burst damage by healing through it, and quite literally waiting their opponent out in fatigue. The extra life that they can generate for their opponents via one single attack of Ice Barrier is a really tricky thing to play around. It requires having the experience in the matchup and understanding what your game plan is.
Experience in any of these matchups is difficult to have accomplished at this point. We're still very early on into a new meta, and these decks are constantly evolving. Mage at the beginning of Ungoro, Quest Mage, was very, very popular, but now it is all freeze.
North Carolina's hand, that helps a lot, but their hand was looking awfully miserable.
Abysmal. Still not shaping up to be very good. Frost Novas are going to not do much at all against Poly Montreal. Just not a lot of minion combat in Freeze Mage.
They're gonna pretty much do nothing. Poly Montreal's game plan with their minions is typically to fight for board and maybe chip away if you get the opportunity. It's not a central focus to their win condition. Medivh's Valet, perhaps the one caveat to that, because it's 3 damage per game. So that is something.
And then you have Arcanologist, of course, but you don't run that because it's potentially 2 damage to face. You run it because it pulls Ice Barrier and Ice Block from your deck, which, you know, Freeze Mage pre-Ungoro struggled a lot of the time with drawing the secrets it needed.
It's like a Crocolist, too. It's a Crocolologist.
Crocolologist.
Yep.
I like it.
There's
Wait,
not
Arcane Missiles?
It's a minion burn deck. You're reliant on your early game tempo. I mean, this deck wants to get online with Mana Worm and deliver a punch to 1 health minions and then just push through.
Yeah, I guess it would perform very well against Hunter in that case.
Yeah, this was the latest development of the deck I'd seen, but it can really struggle when these kinds of hands crop up. I would tend to say that Freeze Mage, after watching this, doesn't seem like the best matchup for it.
Well, no barriers in deck. As you can see, the Arcanologist did not pull anything there with both blocks already in hand.
Yeah, that gives Poly Montreal some information here, too. I don't think they're going to assume it's just one ice block in the deck, because this deck relies on having multiple turns of mana to unlock burn spells. So for Poly Montreal, they now know that 2 of the cards in hand for North Carolina are ice blocks. That's 3 cards they're operating on.
Not to mention North Carolina took the risk that Poly Montreal had an ice block activated. Turned out to be barrier, and now Poly Montreal gained 7 health. They're back up to 32.
They're going to have to get minions through this game, is what it boils down to. I mean, their hand is not giving them the liberty of waiting around. They're living on a prayer at this point.
I just don't know if it'll be possible. Both Mana Worms are gone. One Sorcerer's Apprentice is gone. First Arcanologist is gone. What really do they have that's going to provide minion damage in this case?
Well, 2 ice blocks get drawn right away. So that punishes the Arcanologist in hand. So the thing I'm thinking about for North Carolina, a big one would be like either Primordial Glyph into a lot of like Kabbalist Tome style of effects and card generation there, or number 2 would be an Archmage Antonidas. Something like that could also be a big benefit for them, but this is a low-value Primordial Blues here. Third Ice Block is, I think, likely to be their best option, but how good is that at this point?
Well, Mirror Entity's a liability because likely Doomsayer is coming down for your opponent at some point. Cone of Cold is a dead card in hand, so yeah, it's got to be block, but...
I could see Mirror Entity, but there's that risk of Doomsayer.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you hit a Loot Hoarder, maybe you hit an Acolyte of Pain.
That's the thing. You can definitely hit those, and maybe you just have to risk it and go, wow, maybe we can get them to play Archmage Antonidas or Alex Straza into this. Deliver some damage that way.
Thinking that one extra turn from Ice Block probably won't change anything. I don't blame them.
And this is how little concern they have for board value at this point. That's Medea's Valet to face and then start attacking. They know these minions are likely to die anyway. They want to take every point of damage they can get. No investing here for North Carolina. It is very all-in and very grim.
Yeah, absolutely. Poly Montreal, 2 Frost Novas, 2 Blizzards in deck. North Carolina knows that these minions are getting removed or they're getting permanently frozen, so it doesn't really matter. Just trying to chip away at that armor that they created, unfortunately, because the barrier was up instead of the block early on.
I agree with the risk, though.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's just, it's a tough matchup, especially when you draw rather poorly. You don't get Arcane Intellect, Cold Light Oracle.
And that's the thing is North Carolina doesn't necessarily have the information that this second ice barrier. They haven't seen an ice block come down yet, and a lot of times you'll only see one ice barrier in these decks. So perhaps once again, Poly Montreal setting a very small trap here, gain a little bit more life.
Small but sizable trap, I would say. Any little bit helps here for Poly Montreal, and this certainly will do them some good.
It's not the worst result.
I mean, North Carolina has some clean trades here if they want them. Do you just Nova and go face? I don't even know.
I think you do.
Their hand is just not doing them any favors.
You
Well,
really don't want to trade your minions in this spot. Like they are far and away the aggressor.
far and away?
They have to be the aggressor. They do not have inevitability on their side.
Maybe like pretty close and near.
Do you mean like just in terms of what's actually happening, or what their role
just in
is?
terms of what the deck can do. I mean, yes, if you get an explosive start with Mana Orb and Sorcerer's Apprentice, Arcane Missile, and maybe Mirror Image, then yes, you are aggressive. But here,
How
it's
they
just,
win? They have to get the damage through. Like,
it's just been bad.
Poly Montreal's got the edge.
Yeah, I mean,
They don't need to
Antonidas
close as quickly.
Antonidas is likely they're out.
Well, if they're
So
frostbolting here, I don't think Antonidas is in the deck.
I would like to see them saving some cheap spells. If they have it, maybe they don't have it. Maybe it's double Pyroblast. You can't dirty rat a Pyroblast.
That's typically the game plan that I've seen is double Pyroblast. And that's kind of what I mean by they're the aggressor. They're the ones that have to push the action. If they give Poly Montreal the time, they very easily piece together the tools they need and close it. North Carolina has to be that step ahead. They absolutely have to be.
And there's still 2 Fireballs, 1 Frostbolt, potentially 2 Pyroblasts, a Primordial Glyph. There's a lot of burn left.
Firelands Portal.
Firelands Portal, yeah.
There's stuff there, they just don't have any cards.
They need to pick up Acolyte of Pain, Arcane Intellect, Cold Light Oracle before they unlock that burn.
Well, they did get a card draw of the Mirror Entity, so...
Good case.
Paid
Good
off.
scenario.
Ice Block is like a card draw, though.
It's true.
Extra turn.
It's true.
Again, I think they were just hoping for a bigger payoff. Just jam the Alex.
Can't blame them. And maybe here, Loot Hoarder kills a minion and draws you a card.
I guess ideal scenario is your opponent just never plays Alex Straza.
Yes. Well, when does that ever really happen?
So Poly Montreal uses the Medea's Valet here rather than just the hero power. And that's really interesting to me because I don't really see the strongest purpose of their minions on board at this stage. That's a really interesting play.
I think Poly Montreal has definitely the read that North Carolina has no ice barriers in deck. We saw the Arcanologist not pull a card.
Just start chipping away.
Yeah, 2 damage to face.
This is one of the saddest Frost Novas I've seen in a long time.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, 2 mana, 2/3 Frostbolt.
Oh, baby.
Not bad.
Oh, boy.
That's pretty good too, though.
Oh, boy.
Huh. So, is it Antonidas Frostbolt? Is it just that easy?
Looks like it, but
Hope your opponent doesn't have Fireball hero power.
Yep.
Even if they do have Fireball, that's 6 damage that's not going to your face.
a lot of it too is just that, like, how long can they afford to wait? You know, the Primordial Glyph is likely in the deck.
Yeah.
That can produce some cheap spells. Maybe they just have some low 1 cost or stuff in there they can do. But if those two things don't seem like a real possibility, Archmage Frostbolt's a lot of value that you're getting. And again, if North Carolina fireballs and uses hero power in this, you bought 7 extra life, your minions are now getting through. That one card is producing a ton